to another episode of the Q Crew here on the Tell Me More podcast.
Q Crew.
If you didn't hear that, then you missed out on who our guest is. I don't even have to have an introduction because every time we do a Q Crew, Brandon McNasty Pickens will give you that awesome intro. We need to get him to just record one. I've been asking for a while now for you and your boy to start to make me an intro for any of my podcasts. I don't even care which one. It can be
I'm rocking with the whole band now. My producer, Barefoot, who I've brought up a couple times over the course of this, has been he's doing his thing, but we can't link up quite the way that we need to now. With that said, my bassist is all about that life as well. Classically trained, he's an animal.
Hey,
so
if you can figure it out, I know we're living in strange times and we're all stuck apart, and a lot of people have a lot more time on their hands than they've ever had before, and they have none of the ability to interact and do all those things that they've been pushing off and wanting to do. But if you can get that going, I'd love to hear it. Have you made any music while stuck in lockdown?
So we actually took the time because our bassist's wife actually works for the CDC, so they've been hella quarantined as you can fucking quarantine. And with Julie's daughter being immunosuppressed as well, we've been locked down as fuck just to be safe. But we managed to get a whole original track recorded and then mush it into one of the cover tracks that we were already doing. We're working on a quarantine music video for it, so that'll be on the horizon sometime in the very near future. But yeah, that's where we are now. Just a couple of bits of leftover work that we haven't quite gotten done yet because everything is fucking nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're putting out products, so I mean, it's nuts, but you're still pushing through. You're still getting things done, and it's good. This is a good time for us to have more content, have some awesome music coming from yourself, have some awesome documentaries coming out of ESPN, and that's what we're here to talk about.
I'm excited that you brought me on to talk about this in the first place. You know, I love coming to party with you. Big Mac, no cheese.
I figured this was perfect for you because, one, we like to talk about basketball anyways, and we often do it in a very big picture look back rather than granular looking at the way plays are done. I mean, we still have those conversations a little bit, but it's always these big picture conversations, and there's nothing more big picture than Jordan versus LeBron, the GOAT argument, you being a Chicago fan who is right there to have those conversations with me. It seems like you can't have a Jordan documentary series without getting to that conversation, which we will wait till next week. And we will bring on my boy, Big Colin, to be in the middle of this conversation. But there's no way we can finish these podcasts without having the Jordan versus LeBron. We're less debaters than a lot of people are about it. We're not going to go at each other's throats, but we will have to have that conversation.
Do you see that thing where Shaq was talking about what his best Lakers team versus that Golden State Warriors team would before we but there's only so many answers for getting your ass whooped.
Yeah, I think the big thing with Shaq going at Draymond deserved it. He was too disrespectful.
Yeah, he was bold.
Now, the response I find fair in terms of, okay, Draymond said this, now I'm coming back, I'm going to clap back at him, right? But if we're going to talk about the legitimacy of what he said, no, because it's comical from the moment, because even the conversation of our team would beat that team. Got it. It's so hard to compare these great teams from these different
vastly different era. Oh, it's the crazy part is that the eras themselves aren't that far apart, but the game changed like almost at a polar level, because the way that Shaq played, that shit is not viable now. he would
Shaq would have
foul out in the first fucking half.
So two
There's no
things.
way.
Two things. Shaq saying they would have been a 6 or 7 seed. We already know that's dumb. Just ridiculous. We don't even have to talk
Anybody
about
that's got three people that can pull up from three at a roughly 40% clip, you have to, that's at worst a 2 seed if you beat them specifically by banging the shit out of them during the regular season. And I don't know how well that translates into the postseason, because if you're a team that does play that physically, there's no way you've got the legs to chase Steph and Clay around in fucking May. There's no way.
Yeah, and my argument is the game's better than it's ever been. There's just at this point in time, and I had this conversation with Colin last week. Like when I'm talking about like the debate we actually had, instead of Jordan versus LeBron, it was who had the tougher competition. And he made a push that the '80s were such an amazing time, and that's before Jordan even won. And then you can make the argument that okay, during his run, how good were they in the '90s versus how much did Jordan ruin anybody's chance of making a great legacy because he didn't let them win?
I would argue toward the second side on that, just because simply look at some of the Karl Malone. The fact that Karl Malone retired without a chip should tell you everything you need to know about the Jordan era.
Yeah, but I can also say if we're going competition, then Karl Malone winning an MVP on the like MVP malaise years where it's like we want to give it somebody different than Jordan. Like even his best years, which were in the early '90s, like when he actually stole it in '98, he was 27 points a game, 10.3 rebounds, and not all that much else. Not much assists. He had not a lot of blocks, decent amount of steals.
But
Compare
you knew what he
him
was
to
there
Giannis.
for in the first place.
Compare him to Giannis, though. Compare him to 6 guys now in the NBA that could steal the MVP away from LeBron. It's night and day different.
But that's because there's no individual person in the NBA who is head and shoulders. Like, look at how much closer the MVP race was in the years that Mike wasn't playing.
What I'm saying is, in terms of the stats, like you take those top end guys, and now there are ones that are better. There are ones that they can compete with those monster years Jordan put together when he wasn't winning championships. He was just putting up points. Harden does that every year now, and I know half of it's the defense that rules him out.
Russ too. Him and Russ will come get you on the back end of the court too.
Yeah.
He's not nearly as great of a defender as Jordan was, but at the same time, it's not like he's taking plays off or anything. No. Whereas you can make that same argument for Harden, because even when he plays defense,
he's turned it into getting some steals. That's about it.
Which is cool. And the lazy kid, a blind squirrel will find a nut, I think my granny used to say. Is that the phrase?
Yeah, it's something like that. I guess my biggest thing though was like if you compare a center today, they can all dribble better than John Paxson. That's the best argument I have for the competition is head and shoulders above what it was in the 90s.
Welcome to the Q Crew.
We're just going to keep losing this for a second. I'll try to edit it.
But you're saying the centers of today
can dribble better than John Paxson.
Oh, like, for sure. Most of the big men today can, like, think about it this way. Kevin Durant, for all of the he's soft, he should have picked up weight. That motherfucker's 6'11". Could you imagine if the 6'11" sniping ass, cross you up ass KD had existed in 1983? Y'all can just stop playing basketball. Everybody else can go home. He would have been Wilt Chamberlain. Like, yeah. Magic Johnson didn't even have a fucking left hand. Could you imagine if Chris Paul were in Magic Johnson's shoes?
Yeah.
Fucking throw your Converse out the window. This is over.
Yeah,
the game is always going to progress and grow. The same, you could say the same thing about the MLB, the same thing with the NFL, fucking any professional sport. But the thing that makes Jordan so special is that he separated himself from a class of people that were already ridiculous on a global scale. Like, you look at the Dream Team.
I feel like you're jumping ahead at this point. You're trying to do the Jordan is better argument, which we'll get to next week.
I'm
And
not saying better. I'm saying greater.
well, yeah, but and that's one of the points I made last week with Colin was I'm saying bar none, competition was so much more because the fact that you think of how many great players there are today and the fact that LeBron can't separate himself from the other greats, that I think helps Jordan's argument for greatest of all time. But when we're just talking about competition, it is
It also helps.
undoubtedly more competition
It
today.
helps LeBron's argument for greatest of all time the same way that, as much as I hate to give Tom Brady credit for shit, the fact that he kept consistently, I can't even say kept, I'm going to say keeps, because nigga ain't dead yet. But in the eras of Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, and he is arguably the greatest competitor in the history of human beings, at least since we started paying for it.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can do what Tom Brady did in the modern era, Jordan's is close enough to the modern era, and it's not, it's so much different than Bill Russell's 11.
I love it because it created the modern era.
That's
it
true
feels
too.
like we got to watch Jordan in some of his best years. I watched him get diced and fucking tossed up by Allen Iverson, and that is important to the history of the game because we never got to see Jordan dunk on Dr. J. However, we did get to see AI cross up Jordan while Jordan was still winning chip. On Miller plays football now and call those the same thing. Like I think Shaq would still be successful in today's NBA just because he is purely too big to be that fast, too fast to be that strong. Can he shoot a free throw? No. But what's going to stop him from putting up 50 on you in the paint? He doesn't have to shoot from 15. Stop him from 5.
And we've seen guys, like, it's not that you can't play center as somebody who can't shoot threes. Rudy Gobert does it. There are players who have
Al
found that
Horford
niche.
for years. Al Horford has been a fucking stud for years. In my opinion, one of the most underrated players in the NBA for the last 15 fucking years, basically. Because he's been here, he keeps going in, he keeps putting in work, he will go handle your big man, and he's nimble enough to go to the outside and go defend the wing. But for the most part, you don't need him to because he's got the paint locked down to a point where why do you need him to step out?
Yeah, and I think Al Horford, though, like, fits that kind of, like, the game is changing, make sure you can fit this criteria. I think, Rudy Gobert is kind of that statue, though. Like, he's that old guy that, still can pull it off. And with Shaq, imagine Shaq can do all of the positives that Gobert can do. He can protect the rim. He can score off of a pick and roll as a guy who just goes straight at the rim. In terms of what he can do inside, yeah, you might not try to play the same way your offense always going through Shaq down inside as much as you did because, yeah, they'll foul him and the points lost for he can't shoot free throws well enough won't make up for other people shooting threes on you. But he also got big on purpose. If he wanted to be leaner and meaner and play in today's game, he would just do that, and he would still be a monster. So
and
it's just young
Shaq was terrifying. There's an easily found video you could pull up on fucking YouTube, I'm sure. Right before a Bulls Magic game, I think it was during the 96 or 97 season. You got young Shaq with the fucking high top with the slash in it. Everybody's still in warm-ups. Shaq and Mike are playing a game of one-on-one, and Shaq hit Mike with the nastiest little stick poke, turn back, turn around, pulled up on him from like 14, and Mike had no choice but to laugh and pat big fella on the chest. Mike doesn't give away love and compliment. You got to go get those, as the series has clearly shown us. Like, these people have been to the promised land with him, and they're like, yeah, I love him. Fucking asshole. it is what it is at that point. But Shaq was special. He's quick. He's nothing that big should be that quick. That's what I'm so excited for. If we're ever allowed to watch new basketball again, watching Zion go, super excited now that he gets the rest that his body has needed since he got through the second stage of puberty. Giving Zion an extra year to get his life together is the worst thing that could have happened to anybody else that wants to play basketball. Mark my words.
I just hope he doesn't come out of this on the chunky side, because if he gets that Charles Barkley complex and he just adds on an extra 20, that it's like he'll use it to his advantage, but he doesn't need that.
We live in the age. We live in the age of people being in your ear all the time. Not just in the way that your normal mentors are, but there are people in your mentor's ear, because everyone, you can see and analyze things in a way that, like, hey, bro, keep it under 300, and I think we got something. Good going on here. He's almost 6'8". He can jump to the fucking moon and back, and at this point, all he needs to do is just sit around and work on his outside shot, which is already way better than people want to acknowledge that it is in the first place.
Yeah, it's already scary, the stuff he's put together at this point.
Imagine him getting the ball at the top of the key, and then you see him jab step like he's going to run, and then pull up like he's going to shoot, and now you're scared.
He's a freak, and I think the one thing we've learned with the NBA is there's no era. It's not like, I think maybe a handful of guys. I think it's more like events that went wrong, whether it's injuries. There are a few guys
too.
There's a few guys, like I'm a big KU fan, so Thomas Robinson was a guy that he was born in the wrong era, and he got, like, they used to always talk about tweeners, but they always used it wrong, and they used it to hold people down. But Thomas Robinson got the tweener thing, where he was not tall enough to still be a modern big, and he couldn't shoot threes. And so his rebounding ability, his ferocity didn't matter. There was no place in the league for him because he just didn't quite fit. I think if he comes in 10 years earlier, it works. If he comes in 10 years later, he learns how to shoot a three.
That's not unintentional either, because for the same reason that I grew up believing that Dennis Rodman was 6'9", almost 6'10", because they would bill him at that height. He wasn't but a fucking half inch taller than Jordan. He was just jump. All things equal, if you were to take a raw Sean Kemp and put him in this same situation, I think he would be very much the same way. I don't believe Sean Kemp was 6'9".
I'm pretty sure he was 6'9". Wasn't Sean Kemp billed as 6'11"?
On what fucking planet?
I think he has to be 6'9", but I know he's not 6'11". But I think
they were lying about how tall. No, he was just thick. They didn't want people to know that you didn't have to be 7 foot tall to be dunking on niggas in. I don't know if you're gonna have to cut that one.
Nah. You said it.
We're talking about basketball. All right, that's fair.
You said
I said it. You didn't.
Sean Kemp totally did the Zion thing too. He came back from the lockout 30 pounds heavier, and like,
they were like, "Oh, that's gonna be bad," and he was like, "Couldn't hear you."
I mean, he didn't last too long after that. And in fairness, it was later.
That
in his
weight
career.
is bad on your knees.
Yeah.
That's bad on your knees, and also especially when you're later in your career. Zion is a gigantic. That's a big ass man child right now. You know what I'm saying? It's a big ass man child. If the right people are in his corner and he does what he's supposed to do, as far as, because everyone's going to tell you everything, it's up to you to pick what advice you want to take. If he picks the right advice and does this the way he's supposed to, I've not seen a person who is as individually terrifying since Shaq, maybe Kevin Garnett. Because Kevin Garnett's fucking just just obscene. He's a special kind of talent. Way too long to be pulling. He was KG before KD. You know what I mean? Everybody wanted KD to put on more weight. It's like, no, block my 13-foot tall jumper from 30 feet out. What? Why would I have no business in there. There ain't nothing for me in there except me doing slidey, snaky shit. It's kind of like when you look at how they looked at Pat Mahomes on his way out of Texas Tech. Big air raid offense. Obviously, he's got a big arm, so sure, his numbers are huge. No, look at the player. Look at the skills that the player has. What can you do with that? OKC did a good job of that. They couldn't quite get there. And when you go back to the Bulls saw what Jordan had to bring to the table, and they tried to do what he was naturally gifted at, which is actually distributing the ball. Unfortunately, you're not going to have a better scorer on your team than Jordan, so we need to find a new distributor. It seems so simple from the outside looking in. I assume that if I were actually involved, I would also have been confuzzled as to how the fuck you have Michael Jordan and you still aren't winning championships through his first 7 or 8 years in the league. Like, what do we need to give him?
I'm gonna give you credit. That was a hell of a wraparound. We went off the deep end, and somehow you went all the way out to Patrick Mahomes to actually get us back to the documentary, to The Last Dance, and those first years of Jordan. I do want to just give it to you to talk with me about the first few episodes, since I had already gotten on and talked about those last week. I want to see the things, but you already jumped into a fun one that I love to talk about. So I'm going to set up, and I want to hear your kind of thought process on, because, you know, every documentary, every movie, it needs a villain. You know, you have to figure out a way to do that. There are no good villains for Jordan because he vanquished all of his enemies.
No, there's one great villain. There's only one villain. There's always only ever been one villain.
Well, I'll get to that. I just mean in terms of the people that he goes up against. By the time it's done, you know, it's like, is Karl Malone going to be the final?
Oh, no. I'm talking about basketball. You're thinking I'm talking about Jerry Krause. No, I'm talking about as far as on the court.
It's
itself.
Isaiah.
It's Isaiah. It is absolutely Isaiah.
But he's also not the
final boss. Such a villain that the rest of the league was like, we don't want Isaiah on the dream team because that means we won't get Jordan.
Yeah.
They collectively made that. They didn't say it explicitly, but let's be fucking real. You speak English, right?
Yeah.
I heard that shit loud and clear as a child. Fuck that nigga from. Oh, he's back. All right.
I feel like Zoom is the one that's going to censor you. Like, I don't care what you say, but every time you get into curse words, the internet connection cuts you off. So, yeah, no, Isaiah works on that level. It's just the problem is he's not the final boss. So it seemed pretty clear to.
No, he was the final boss. He was the final boss because after Jordan killed. That was the final boss. Have you ever, like, a game like Skyrim? You finish it, you kill Alduin, the great dragon of time, or whoever the fuck, and then you go on about your day, and now you're just the dude that walks around wrecking stuff. The Jarls and Jordan wasn't about to go, like, stomp David Stern out.
I'm going to say that at the very least, Jason Hare, who directed this series, he at least knew that Jerry Krause had to be pretty solid on the list of the villains. And I think he did a good job of fleshing that out. The question I think I have, particularly for somebody like you who grew up a Bulls fan, is, you know, how much did that feel like that was in the moment? And then how much when you kind of go back and you look and just as you mentioned earlier, Jordan was great. Jordan did so many great things. If Jerry Krause doesn't build this team around in the way he did, maybe, people still believe maybe they win with Doug Collins over Phil Jackson, but I think it helps to have Phil Jackson in that role. It helps to keep making all those right moves. Like, how
Before I
much
answer
Jerry
any
Krause
parts of
key?
that question, to be clear, love Doug. That doesn't happen without
No.
Phil. No fucking way. Ask the Lakers. Jerry Krause is absolutely a villain off the court as far as his not having the fucking ball with you villain. It was definitely Jerry Krause. And the problem with, as a Chicago fan and a fan of the Bulls and the franchise and the organization, and a fan of sports in general, the concept of the player being bigger than the sport or the fan base is wild. It almost contradicts how sports are supposed to work in the first place. There's a lot of selflessness that goes into playing team sports to begin with. Like, if this were tennis and Michael Jordan were Arthur Ashe and Jerry Krause was just his top sponsor, maybe I feel differently about it. But as it is a team sport and it's supposed to be an everybody thing, I definitely feel like Jerry Krause is the bad guy. With that said, being a bad guy and being real fucking good at your job are not mutually exclusive. Jerry Krause is one of the greatest goddamn GMs to ever do the thing. He, even with all of the contention that he had with Jordan before and then through, to get Jordan to come back into this same place and you still be there, when you're dealing with a person of that magnitude, if they don't like you, Jordan could have reasonably, and we only know this now as adults and seeing how shit kind of works out there, Jordan probably could have flexed real hard and been like, I'll come back if Jerry leaves. And the ownership might have made that happen just because Jordan is that profitable and marketable and important to the city. You bring him back, not only do you bring back the jersey sales, but as far as the city goes, you bring back a whole lot of charitable donations. So, like, if you were feeling kind and caring about give a shit about human beings. I'm sorry. But my point is, if you are talented enough to convince the greatest basketball player that any of us have ever seen to come back and do it again after all of this shit has happened, you got to be fucking good at what you're doing. That is, Jerry Krause is Jerry Krause is the Bill Belichick of being NBA GM. Same thing with Belichick. Fucking hate him, but tell me that motherfucker didn't deliver. Cause who got Scotty? Don't worry, I'll wait.
Even had to live through getting rid of one of Jordan's favorite players in Oakley, and
also losing one of Chicago's favorite players in Oakley just to make him a rival because he was an integral part of that vicious fucking violent ass Knicks team. They had a nigga who had a hairline with a part down the. Black people don't get parts down the middle. That's what? Who wants to go bang in the paint with that human being? He was like, I'm gonna show up in drag today and keep my mustache. That is a terrifying human being. I got friends who do drag on the weekends or middle of the week, depends on when the show is.
Whenever
But the point is, if they see a bitch with a part down the middle, they avoid that bitch. That's like, I was asking why Drake wanted smoke with Pusha T. Like, that's a 45-year-old black dude who still braids his shit in 4 plaits down the sides. You don't want to fight him. He probably wears all black Nike Air Force Ones. Nah, you don't want this smoke. And the Bulls wanted all of that smoke with a half European team. It was like this also speaks to the way that pro sports work as a whole. If you look at the top tier people that we had on the Chicago Bulls, there's only one like regular ass good old go for it American guy on that last run of a team, which would have been Steve Kerr. The other white guys were 7 foot tall Australian. He's got 4 felonies. He's a 7 foot tall Australian. Not to be racist, but they did entirely build that country on criminality. And then you got Tony Kukoc, who was a baller-ass playboy in Europe in his teens. His first interaction with the Bulls in general was 2 of their greats beating the shit out of him on a national stage. Do you think he went on to be a nice guy after that? Fuck off.
Also,
and then you got
dealt
Steve
with
Kerr.
war and death. In
Right.
country.
Ignore all of the vaguely, like, he's from that whitish, brownish land where everything sucks. It's just the poorest white people and the saddest brown people, and they're fighting.
And, I mean, he literally stayed, like, as he's getting ripped apart for not coming over. He stayed so he could be with his family during wartime. Like, that's why he didn't leave.
He left millions of dollars on the table, and then
I think, in fairness, he didn't leave that much money on the table. He actually made more money.
His contract, he made more money, but everyone knows if you sign your contract in the NBA, your endorsement money is going to cover the difference.
Yeah, I don't think Tony was getting endorsement money. I think that was there was barely room. It was
then his agent sucked. That nigga didn't have somebody like me talking at him. I'm telling you.
Well, no agents getting past Jordan. Jordan ain't letting Tony Kukoc get an endorsement.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you how to sold it to Jordan. Hey, so you know how you're an international superstar, but you don't want to get involved in other people's shit necessarily? Check this out. We run a thing with you balling on motherfuckers in the court, and then we do like 3 seconds of Tony Kukoc's faces, and then we talk about Nike fighting the war wherever you got to. Boom. Cut to Tony Kukoc's ankles as he pulls up for 3. Money in everybody's pockets. Somebody got to start fucking paying me, bro. You lucky I love you. It's the only reason I do this for free.
No, okay. Well, you do it for free because I don't make any money off of it.
I don't give a shit if you make money. Nigga, I was talking about me.
Once you are profitable enough to help me make money, then I'll start giving you the money.
I totally want you to make mad money because the more money you make, the easier and better your setups and shit go.
Yeah.
I feel like
I'm doing this right now. I
feel like a baby celebrity every time I play with you. I'm not gonna lie. Every time.
That's the game plan. We just got to keep doing it this way. It's slowly but surely.
Cultivate that energy. Cultivate that energy.
Just gonna have to happen. So, anything else from the first 6 episodes that you want to talk about that you missed? I have a short list here. You hit on the dream team. We hit on Phil Jackson. We mostly that they needed him, but we didn't necessarily hit on the death of the triangle in the 2010s. But we don't necessarily need to. We have Rodman vacation. We have
I do want to address a couple of things. I'm gonna get to the Rodman vacation in just a second because that's fun. The death of the triangle. I don't think that the triangle died. No, it is still there. It's in a different form. Hold on. Got some technical difficulties over here myself. BRB. All right, so the triangle itself is not dead. The triangle has taken a different form altogether. just like there are different types of triangles. The
So an
new
isosceles now?
triangle, it's hypotenuse as shit, bro. But I think the new triangle is actually this thing that you see out of Golden State. And does it look like an ISO? Does it feel like an ISO?
Now we're just saying that
No.
we get it. Passing wins, but a triangle is one specific.
You're not hearing me. No, I saw the same graphic on the screen with the triangle. No. The triangle offense itself always had the same goal. The difference now is that the triangle has been expanded because the concept of pulling up from the way that a triangle is shaped, if you want it to be a worthwhile triangle, means that most of the time, if you're doing effective stuff on the court, your points aren't very far out of where the key itself, where the 3-point line would be. You know what I'm saying? I'm no basketball coach. I'm doing my best over here.
I'm trying. I'm trying to help you here, but I'm just
what I'm saying is that the way that Golden State, when they have their optimal team, runs is basically just the triangle again, except it's stretched out. So that that fourth pass that would normally have your guy at 15 where he could either pull up or run in, instead is to a guy at 31. And they have a team that's built where fucking 5 of the 12 dudes that they put in jerseys can pull up on you from 31. It doesn't look the same because it doesn't have to play the same. Phil Jackson's triangle offense absolutely set up multiple. Why do you think Steve Kerr runs the shit the way he does in the first place? It was set up all the time that at any given point, you could just whip the ball at Steve. And if Steve is feeling cocky, or Tony, it was Steve or Tony, Mike wasn't pulling up for 3. He liked you to feel his nuts on your face. That was just the way he did it. And Scotty wasn't a scorer by nature, so he wasn't going to do it. But they had the Steve and Tony, or back in the day, BJ or whoever. But you can whip it to the guy in the corner. He's going to be open because everyone else is crossing themselves up. Nobody has to dribble. That's the whole point. And then when someone does stop and dribble on you, then everyone gets fucked up because they've gotten so used to the flow and motion. It's the sickest, most genius shit.
All right, so here's the thing. If the idea of the triangle is just about passing, it's about making sure you're getting it to guys who otherwise wouldn't get the ball. In that way, the Warriors offense does that. That is what Steve Kerr picked up. But in terms of the focus of the offense and where people are, they didn't just expand to take them out of those same 3 points. They are a free-flowing offense with the passing and are just as likely to put 4 guys on the left side of the court and 1 on the right, not even to do isolation, but to begin a passing set. And the key to the triangle was not just that we're focused on these 3 parts of the court, it's that we have to get back there when we set people up to kind of play outside of it. There is nowhere on the court that the Golden State Warriors want you to be, especially not as a triangle. There's not like we want 2 people in the corners and 1 at the top of the key. Like their one goal is we want to continue motion because eventually you will get yourself out of position and you won't be able to stop these guys because they can shoot from everywhere. Most of them can dribble. They can all make plays for themselves. So the key is
this is why I call
is
it
regimented and the Warriors isn't. But the key to the triangle is it's not just about passing. It's regimented. The Warriors are less about regimented. They want the free form just as much as they want a set play.
It's regimented in the sense that at the end of the play, you still have the same that triangle is still going to be represented
If you have
at
three
the
people on
end
the
of
court,
the
yes,
play
at any point
regardless.
in time, you can draw a line between 3 of the 5 players.
Get out of here!
You are right about that.
Don't play their coaching staff short like that.
I'm just saying it is effectively different, and I think it even showed when Phil Jackson was so focused on saying we have to do it this way. And even if you're saying that the Warriors' offense is an expansion of the triangle, fine. Phil Jackson said my triangle still works, and he ran it into the ground with the Knicks, almost ruining
his
the legacy
triangle
of the
is
triangle.
a different thing. I'm talking about so his triangle that he carried on is his triangle. He took it from the Bulls to the Lakers.
4-hour podcast
to the Knicks. What I'm saying is the triangle, what he created. It's like talking about the 4-3 defense. I'm gonna keep making references to the other sports.
If you think about it, the 3-4 defense is the same as the 4-3 defense.
Depending on what you want to tell the dude on the corner he's playing today. Is that a rushing linebacker or is that a defensive end?
You're literally – see, what you did with the triangle is the same thing you're doing right now with the 4-3 and the 3-4. If that's all that mattered, then everybody would just run a 4-3 and you just have one linebacker you tell to do something different sometimes. But no, you create a different defense so you can signify
what you do is you set up your personnel so that the one guy that would be the difference between the two is the difference between the two.
Kind of like a 5-2.
You talking about that?
Is the same. You know why it's the same? Because there's 11 fucking players on the field, just like there's 5 on a basketball court at any given time. So if we're gonna do that, then everything's the same. It doesn't matter. All right, we're done with the triangle. Do you really want to talk about?
So is the league. So is the league.
No, you just said it changed the league, and it's the most important offense right now. It's the Warriors' offense.
It is very important, and it's the reason that people play the way. The fact that Giannis is as badass as he is, only triangle without Mike or without Kobe. Well, now there's a Giannis, so even if you have a Mike or a Kobe, the triangle as it was, Phil's triangle, is no longer viable. Steve's triangle is still viable. Oh, he froze again. God damn it.
Yeah, I have no idea how much of that we captured. This is the most messed up connection I've had on any one of these. So I will not know until I check the recording in post. But
I'm like right on the other side of the wall from the router too. So
yeah, it's weird. Yeah, so we'll figure it out.
Damn it, company that I won't name out loud just in case I actually need money from you at some point in the future.
All right, so yeah, I'm done with the offenses just because I'm not somebody who ever played enough organized basketball growing up to have the full X's and O's mindset. But I do know that when you look at somebody like Jordan, it was clear that creating an offense around him that told him to pass the ball away made the most sense because he was always going to get his. Whenever he wanted to turn it on, he would get it. And it wasn't just like they talk about it like it's about keeping everybody else kind of involved, but it's not even just that. It's getting those other people to score when they can. And if, you can increase the total number of points that come from somebody other than Jordan, you always knew Jordan when he needed to. He would score at least 20, and then everything else was gravy after that. That's just how it worked. And in the playoffs, when you can – at different times be putting up 45 like it's nothing. Like that
was especially in Cleveland because that was his favorite pace to take a big fat old 40 shit.
All you needed was that those other guys. And then as you mentioned earlier, okay, Jordan knows how to distribute. What if we get a different guy in there that can help set up Jordan to score more? And Pippen as a distributor, never really a scorer, but still put up his points when he needed to. Those two worked in tandem, and it's kind of the weirdest thing that, once again, don't want to get into the long haul of the greatest of all time debate, but it is crazy how much Jordan gets credit for things that are like, he had a top 5 player next to him. Like you can't talk about.
You see Pippen's line, right?
Like,
Like you see Pippen's stat line. That man is a fucking animal. Another thing that I love about Jerry Krause, and I'm gonna take this back to Jerry Krause. He picked Jordan and he picked Scotty. He picked Scotty specifically to complement Jordan's mentality. Scotty is second best in the NBA every year at basically everything behind only Michael Jordan. As much as I love to talk about what Charles Barkley's career could have been or what Karl Malone's career could have been, how many chips Hakeem could have snatched up because he pulled 2 in a row when Jordan wasn't there. God knows what happens the year before or the year after. He might have pulled 4 straight. Why? Because Scotty's a nice guy. You know he sounds like this, and everyone wants to hate him all the time. He's a nice.
yeah, for me with Pippen, I think it was more amazing that I always knew he was kind of low key, just a soft spoken guy that almost to his detriment now that he's become a commentator and he's on ESPN talking on the jump. But when you get to that moment of him going after Krause in like episode 2 or 3, like that is the one that I knew they had their issues with Krause. I never knew Pippen got as that sharp with his attack.
Right. No, he was damn near as mean as Mike. He didn't give a shit. Also, what I didn't realize as a kid until seeing this thing, I didn't know how bad Scotty was getting fucked on his money. Holy shit. I'd have burned the goddamn United Center down. Fuck you mean?
Yeah, and that's an interesting conversation that I think
that's disrespectful to and that's got to be part of why Chris Paul's job nowadays is as hard as it is, because you got to make sure your boys ain't getting just straight dogged like that. That's rude.
Well,
he was getting the appropriate money that he should have gotten for a kid coming out of Nowheresville, fucking Arkansas on a rookie contract. Problem was that shit went 10 years.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Everybody else, though, wasn't getting screwed the way Scotty was, which was the strange thing. So when we talk about it kind of being, Chris Paul trying to stop it from happening, which eventually does happen in terms of the types of restrictions they have. But the league was built in a way. I mean, Horace Grant leaves the Bulls and he gets a contract where basically he signs for 1 year to get the bird rights. And once he signs that 1 year and renegotiates, because it's a 5-year contract with a re-opt after 1, when he re-opts, he gets a shit ton of money. And for Scotty, he thought he was going to get the same thing.
He gets a shit ton of money for choosing to come back, whereas Scotty didn't have.
But that's the thing. Scotty was in that contract where that's what should have happened. He thought he was going to do the same thing everybody else did. But Jerry Krause like, no, I got you locked in for 10 years at nothing. Why would I give you the money? Which was so strange because everybody else was like, keep your players happy. And it's not like they couldn't pay Pippen. It's not like they couldn't pay Jordan. The way that the money
almost
works,
as if somebody paid Jerry Krause to not pay his players. Like they were like, hey, see, you have a great thing going here. We want the NBA to be a league of parity, and we're trying to work toward parity. You're not helping with the parity. Because 3 years on, and then your GOAT leaves for a minute, and then 3 years back on again. On the whole way up, as soon as Scotty got there, because he had that same nose to the grindstone kind of mindset as Mike, it's just, this shit's about to get done. They won't let it not get done. I might be one of the few people that's surprised that the Bulls didn't win a chip without Mike, because as far as talent goes, they had the talent, but that also goes to show you what the difference between Michael Jordan Tom Brady, fucking Derek Jeter type personality in the locker room versus not having that means.
Yeah, I mean, they had the guys that clearly showed they were able to compete, but they didn't have the guy to push them over the top. Or in this case, you had Jordan, and you're unstoppable. Like
He
that's the
wouldn't push
team.
you over the top. He just drag you over the
Yeah,
top. Bitch, I'm going. You coming with me.
and I mean, I think that's one of the big things. I think people looking back don't put enough value in that the Bulls were ridiculously good, and that should never take away from Jordan and how great he was. But once we start getting into these crazy Jordan's the greatest because of six, that's what makes me angry. It's not even that
I
Jordan's
don't
the
like that.
greatest.
That's silly.
I
That's
just
silly. I think Jordan is the greatest, but for the same reason that I think Peyton Manning should have won MVP the year that he got injured and the Colts went 3-13. Who's the most valuable player in the league? I don't know. Probably that big head nigga sitting on the bench because his team looks shook without him. That's you want to talk about value. At that point, the Colts had Peyton for like what 7-8 years or something like that. He's perennial, running them damn near to the fucking longer than that even.
yeah, 13 I think was
Yeah, he was in there for a minute,
nine.
and then
I think that happened
he
like
sat down for
2011 maybe.
1 year, and they went from being absolute favorites in the AFC South to being 3-13.
Yeah, no, he was so much of that team, and with Jordan, it was interesting to see. Basketball is a different game, and considering how many people they had, the team didn't fall off without him that way. But I
They
think
actually played pretty well the first season without him.
basketball, though, when you look at what Jordan does, I mean, I think the people are crazy when they wait for championships. Jordan was the best player in the league for 7 years before they get that first ring. Like he just was at that level, and I think that's the biggest thing is like the championships should be like cherries on top. But there's so much about team construction. There's so much about what other teams can put up, and the idea that Jordan gains a step on LeBron because LeBron can't beat the Warriors plus KD is like, no, that's not how this works, and I think
Right.
that's my biggest problem.
Those kind of conversations are the things that'll keep, you know, 10, 15 years from now when we're talking about it, that'll be the kind of conversation that keeps Damian Lillard out of the Hall of Fame, which as I don't know what game of basketball you've been watching, but that's a Hall of Fame caliber fucking guard. I stand on that. I'll die on that. Also, bar for bar, one of the best motherfucking rappers that you ain't listening to, Dame Dollar. Yeah. But like you look at the what Kemba Walker did in fucking Charlotte to no goddamn audience. Imagine if Anthony Davis had to die in fucking New Orleans. And even scarier, what happens now if the Los Angeles thing doesn't do what it's supposed to? As far as raw ability and like Anthony Davis is going to pull up at your All-Star game every fucking year. Does he get a chip? That kind of depends on a whole lot of moving pieces. Does that change whether or not he is one of the greats as far as being a big man, especially in a game where big man doesn't have a big man doesn't have a place in basketball more or less anymore. And he's like, cool, I will just pull up from three anyway. And they're like, you can't do that. You're big man. He's like, oh, I'm sorry. You want me to do big man things? And then he elbows some dude in the fucking dick and slams in his fucking mouth. But the things that we put the weight on are we're taking into people's legacies in a way that they shouldn't be. Like if people are being judged the way that they are now, then you could argue that Dwayne Wade shouldn't go to the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. I said that the way that I said that because I know that it sounds ridiculous. And if Dwayne Wade's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I will personally burn that bitch down.
And I think
Glad
he
we're
got
recording this. I need y'all on notice.
And he was one who got the early ring, and then getting the extra 2 with LeBron. I think definitely is one where that's going to push him in, where I think otherwise he might have got stuck into that very weird lane that Damian
It's a
Lillard might find
shitty
himself in.
fucking sticky place to be, because like when you look at the fucking numbers when it's all said and done,
Yeah, he's the third best shooting guard of all time. Like it's not even an argument. It's like maybe, I mean, if you're gonna compare eras and you're going like Jerry West, but like it's
sure, I get
Jordan, it's
that,
Kobe, it's
and then it's
Wade.
D
I mean,
Wade,
that's
and
it.
I'm if I'm picking teams, I'm taking D Wade over Kobe because I'm assuming I picked Jordan first.
And it's also like if you're going prime, if you're taking who's in their prime, what do they do? It's like Dwayne Wade, if his knees don't give out,
Flash.
he's pushing Kobe's number 2 spot. Like that's what would have happened. But
don't say prime out loud to me. I'll start talking about Derrick Rose again. Goodness. I think I was just such a big fan because he was like normal people sized in my head. Like he's a tall guy for normal people. It's like 6'3". He's fucking my size. He's like my size if I actually worked out and shit. Fuck that's about. But 6'3", 205. That's a dude. That's a person. You could hang out with him and not feel like you're about to get stepped on by size 27s every time he turns a fucking corner. But also his explosive ability. He was confused, so he jumped extra hard, and then they removed the glue right as he left the ground. Like the energy when you're pulling on something with your friend and they let go and you slap yourself in the face, that's the energy that he has when he leaves the fucking ground. And the recovery and then doing it again and never being what he was supposed to be and still going back and doing it again and again and again. And still to this day, he's washed, but
still playing. Still
on
making money.
On any given point in time, he's as good as any of your all-stars.
I think he finally figured out. I'm not sure if he's like stayed at all-star level, but like he's figured out how post injuries to be an efficient player, which is never what his game was. And I'm amazed that he pulled that off, like because the explosiveness was so much of what he could do.
Almost. All right. I'm drinking about it. Oh, now we're back.
We're back. So, just Derrick
So,
Rose.
Ed, how much of that can you hear while I'm waiting to figure out what the fuck you're doing?
I only heard I guess we'll wait till we get back. So yeah, I would think with Derrick Rose, let's find a way to spin this back in. So give me your top 5 all-time Chicago Bulls.
Top 5 all-time Chicago Bulls. It is tough for me to not put Steve Kerr at point guard as bad as I want to.
I don't need the starting lineup. Just give me your list of 5. They can all be shot guards for all I care. Just give me in order top 5 Bulls players of all time.
Give you 5. Well, obviously
John Paxson, number 1. I think we all know.
Favorite basketball player of all time, and then Derrick Rose. That'll be my top 5.
All right, connection definitely kicked out. So quick, rattle off all 5 as fast as you can.
Shit, again? I don't even know if I'm remember the same 5 again. There's so many. There's so many. It's so good. All right,
Jordan, Pippen, Rose,
Jordan, Scotty, Derek, Dennis, because Dennis Rodman is the fucking man.
That's bold.
if Dennis Rodman ain't one of your favorite Bulls,
Well,
then
I mean, I guess it all depends on if you're going favorite, if you're going like best, and like Rodman is an amazing
oh no.
basketball
To
player.
be
And
clear, if I were picking top five, like for a basketball team, like if I were picking up five for a team,
well, I mean, I just
I'm picking Dennis Rodman to run my four spot.
okay. I'm just saying in terms of like
Dennis Rodman is everything that Draymond Green tries to do, except his hair ain't actually green.
also Draymond can play a little bit of offense other than offensive rebounds, so he's got that extra part of his
Mm,
game.
yeah, I guess. Except if you do enough work on the defensive end, the person that had to go incredibly above and beyond the call of duty you have to be in 1990, you are called on to guard Michael Jordan, who has for the last 5 years been turning everyone else's defense into point soup. And then fast forward to 97, 98, and they're like, hey, you person that is roughly the same size that you were, guard Shaq in the paint. And what he do? Shut that motherfucker down. Dennis Rodman is one of the greatest defenders to ever. Mahorn. No, it wasn't Rick Mahorn. Was it? No, Rick Mahorn was another one of the fucking Pistons. I'm sorry, I have a lot of Piston hate that's just in me. But my point is, you need a hitter. You need a dude that's going to go do the thing. If America would get its shit together, we could have solved the whole nuclear crisis. Just let Dennis go. He already got friends in North Korea. Like, just let that nigga do his thing.
I think
Anybody that is willing to fist fight Shaq in the paint on TV and then go marry Carmen Electra on TV the same week in a wedding dress. I don't even think we got to that part of the series yet.
nope.
I don't think the series got to that part of the series
Oh,
yet. But
it definitely talked about it. It brushed over it way too quickly.
yeah, that was disappointing. You can't just pretend like that didn't happen and then wonder while the kids are all wondering, well, how do you really feel about anybody? Well, shit, we're not sure. How good are you at what you're supposed to be doing? My point is, Dennis Rodman, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. I guess at center, I'm gonna take Charles Oakley. I'm gonna put him at the five. I don't think I need a true five. Between Dennis and Charles, we're fine with anything going down there. And then my four would probably be Tony Kukoc because it's just so hilarious to watch a person play power forward that should be playing power forward,
Yeah.
aka Kevin Durant's entire career. You said you putting who at the four? You talking about that long ass point guard? Okay, cool.
All right, I think I lost.
And then he puts up 40.
I think I lost who you have because all right, so pickup game, which is a different set of rules anyways, because Rodman, it's like, all right, great all-time great Bull. He had a very narrow stretch of his career that he
Oh,
did
he's even
amazing
better
things
in
and helped them.
pickup.
But if you're just picking them up, it's like Derrick Rose at guard. Then you have Jordan shot guard. You got Pippen.
So at the
And then-
one, we take Derrick Rose. At the two, we take Mike. At the three, we'll take Scotty. At the four, we'll take Rodman. And then at the five, we'll take Oak.
Okay. See, I'd be pretty close on that. I think I'd go. I'd throw Rodman at the five as a modern five. Put him in that same Draymond Green role since we made the comparison. And then I would put Tony Kukoc in at the four instead of Oakley.
I need you to say all the stuff that you said again because I heard none of those things.
So Rose at the one, Jordan at the two, Pippen at the three. But then I'm putting Kukoc at the four, and I'm putting Rodman as the small lineup five, small ball five. Put him in that same Draymond Green role, and I don't think we lose a game ever.
I understand why you would make that decision because who wouldn't want the? What I'm saying is between Jordan with the offensive power that you have outside, you don't need Kukoc.
I'm still gonna do it because it means that if you can possibly try to key in on them, Kukoc is going to be wide open from three. Like, you don't want that madness. Like,
That's true. That's true. Croatian sensation.
only one who can't score is Rodman, and he's just putting in putbacks.
That's why I
Man,
put him at the 4. I put him at the 4 because, one, he is defensively a mastermind and does more work on the defensive end of the ball than basically anyone you'll ever see play the game. But on the offensive end of the ball, he sees the angle in such a fucky way. He's going to end up putting up extra points anyway. We don't need a center. I put Oak at the 5 just in case you were confused as to whether or not Dennis was going to whoop your ass when we were done.
see, I'm scared that if you go up against the
Fear
wrong
is important.
if you go in the wrong lineup, I think you're going to have some problems with spacing. I think you're going to have the issues of too many players.
So I disagree with that wholly, and I think that you're playing Dennis Rodman's ability to transition out short. Oak at the 5, we can both agree is going to be fine. That's not where the issue is here on the lineup. The question would be Dennis at the 4 because we're so used to him banging in the paint. Remember, Dennis made his money the really guard anybody 1 to 5. He's long enough, he's quick enough, and he is
I'm not worried
hips
about
on
Rodman.
your hips enough. And then Oak, I don't give a shit who you're, unless your 5 is Shaq, Oak is fine.
So here's the thing. It's not about
Or maybe David Robinson. I'll give David Robinson can deal with Oak enough and actually get points on the board.
I'm going to say that you just don't have enough 3-point shooting, that if you go up against the wrong lineup, you have these mammoths down low, but you're talking people just packing the paint, and Rodman can't shoot, Oakley can't shoot, and you don't even have a point guard who can shoot threes. Derrick Rose is aight from 3. He's okay-ish. Like, if you don't have a 3-point shooting point guard that Jordan and Pippen are used to, you're putting yourself in a tough spot.
I don't give a shit if the final score is 79 to fucking 75. You get locked over there. There's no, like, even if, for example, there were a Shaq involved in the situation where you can't help but watch someone bang around, or you get a James Harden who can just casually pull up from anywhere. He's going to score all day, or you're going to foul him, and he's going to get his extra points from the free throw line. The point at the end of the day is there ain't no money, there ain't no free money to be had there. You have to come earn every bit of that. As the game wears on, Harden wouldn't be slashing to the lane no more. You watch these basketball games.
Yeah, but you watch these games. How many times have Curry and Clay not gotten to 79 points by the third quarter, let alone the end of the goddamn game? The final score is not 79 to 77. That ain't happening with these 3-point shooters of today, man. Not going down.
Those shots only go down because they're allowed to be casually. There's a certain level of comfortability if you can just clean move off of your breaks, or if you can clean slide past the screen. If I'm picking a team based on the greatest Bulls of all, okay, all right. So what I was saying is, what you're saying is accurate, but even if what we're asking is my top 5 Bulls teams of all time, or top 5 players from the Bulls, they would get washed anyway because they wouldn't make it to halftime. They'd foul out before halftime. There's no reasonable way that the game could be played. With the same thing, if you were to take you could take a middle of the road team that like seems like if you were to take Toronto, not from their championship year, but from the year before they got Kawhi, that team would be an Eastern Conference fucking contender in the 90s, except for the fact that fouls are called differently. You brought that in there, they would get beaten to the ground and they would win like 21 games that season.
Yeah.
The Golden State Warriors would not be able to operate there the same reason that
my contention is that the Warriors, particularly Curry, would do amazing in the 90s because of the illegal zone defense rule that basically negates everything that anybody's found a way to stop Curry, to slow him down.
I agree with that. He is literally just his daddy 2.0. And Del Curry was a fucking nightmare because he was like, oh, is that a little bit of space where nobody can touch me? Oh, that's cool. Don't mind me. I'm just going to splash.
And imagine Dell doesn't get pulled to the bench because he misses a three-pointer that he took out of nowhere, and they're like, oh, your percentage isn't high enough. And if
I
you
was
actually
just
had
about to say,
mathematicians,
imagine if Dell's coach believed in him. Imagine if Dell's coach just let him do. You've seen Steph Curry pull up from literally 40 feet with like 45 seconds left in the third quarter, and coach didn't bat an eye. Steve was like, cool.
He shoots better from there than the best three-point shooters of the 90s. So I think at some point, yeah, you have to see, because we've seen Curry
What I'm saying
get
is
pushed
it's
around and
different
have some problems.
games. It's different games. The
I know.
reason that the Jordan and Kobe and LeBron argument is fun is
Stop
because
putting Kobe in there. Kobe's not in there.
Kobe's definitely in there.
No, not even close.
Kobe, I'm gonna explain why. Hold up. The reason that the MJ, Kobe, LeBron conversation is important is because of style. And the thing that makes it clear to me as a person who definitely, unequivocally, 100% believes that Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player of all time, the reason that I would slap the closest person to say that he's a better basketball player than LeBron James is, are you fucking stupid? Why would you not take Michael Jordan with an extra 2.5 inches of height and 70 pounds of just raw muscle? He's just as fast. He has the fucking quicks of, as far as deciding on where the ball needs to go. He might as well be a fucking, like, if JJ Watt and Jason Kidd had a love child. I don't know, like, the fuck more do you want out of a basketball player than LeBron James? That is the pinnacle as far as we've seen so far. But with that said, that still doesn't change the fact that Mike did the things that he did to make it so that LeBron can do the things that he does. The reason that I put Kobe in this conversation is because Kobe does not have the raw physical, what alien planet is this, that LeBron has. All he has is clout, a bunch of people fucking yelling his name as he was finally old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes he would never smoke, and him just wanting to be like Mike. He saw a Spike fucking Lee thing and just bit, is my guess. I don't know what the answer is. Kobe has that, you know what? I fucking hate you. I hate you for no reason other than you're over there. I guess, sorry to be you. You have to die today. LeBron doesn't have that. LeBron is legit and genuinely, as far as we can tell, he's a nice guy. Just nobody that wasn't getting paid to would ever say that about Michael Jordan. Even his teammates, they'd be like, nice guy. He could be approachable in certain situations.
He was
Kobe
a
wasn't.
nice guy to not players on his team. And not even necessarily
He would be a nice guy to players on his team only immediately after they finish their fucking plate. If you're not here to go wreck shit, break shit, kill people, sell chips, make money, then get out of my face. And that is LeBron wants to see everyone succeed. Even the people that he beats in the championship, he's like gonna hook you up with one of his agents to see if he can get y'all like a deal so that y'all got like some commercials in the summer. Mike didn't give a shit if your family ate. Doesn't give a fuck.
He actually
I
found it
came
very
to
important
win.
to get your money and put it in his pocket. That was the extent of his gambling
Yes.
addiction was, I want your money in my pocket. Doesn't matter
I
whose money.
want your
It's my
money.
money now.
Am I aware that I'll make way more money than you and I'm about to walk out here and get way more money? Oh, but before I get out there, hey, you got $20? Tight. Run these dice. Mike wants it. Kobe wanted it like all the time. He exhibited that just fuck it. I'm just gonna keep shooting. Is that a good mentality to give to future players or anything like that? Fuck no. That's stupid. Don't do that. The same reason Russ and James are selling jerseys. Um, the Bulls tried having Mike be the point guard and distribute the ball, which he did amazingly. His numbers were crazy
Yeah.
during that.
Triple doubles every time.
However, that's not how they won games, because the only way they would win in that aspect would be if they were to find a person to come in to score the basketball for Michael Jordan.
I think you
How
just have to have somebody
fucking
that scores
stupid does
as
that
well.
sound?
I think you just have to have somebody to score as well. I think the only reason, they gave up on it.
Wait,
Players weren't around.
scores as well like scores also, or scores as well like
Well,
scores
yeah, scores
as
also.
well as
No,
Michael?
okay, nobody scores as well as Michael.
Okay,
but
had to check.
you just have to have because Jordan was still going to get his points while the ball was in his hands. He might even get more, and he did at times. The problem was there weren't the people around him, and I think when they went to the point guard strategy before Pippen gets there, I'm not sure if it would have been a good idea to keep Jordan at point guard, just because we saw how much Pippen grew as a distributor, being that point forward and pushing the league forward. But
as a fan of the league, I'm so happy that they didn't ever find that out, because Pippen creating the point forward is the whole reason we get to watch the fucking show that we watch now.
Yeah. So I think Jordan as a point guard would have worked. They just did it as like this Hail Mary scenario before they ever got the players around him that they needed to. But I will say before we go on, I'm just going to say we're not having Kobe part of the conversation next week when we go on the point for point, who's the greatest, just to give you a little dose of what there will be that we talk about. You have LeBron James, 27 points a game for his career. You have Michael Jordan at 30. Kobe Bryant, who's supposed to be the same, chuck it first, I'm going to find a way to win, I'm going to will my team to victory, 25 points a game. James is a better scorer. He's a better distributor. The only thing that Kobe really has over him besides the championships are the defensive team awards, which Kobe was getting when he got bad at defense. Like, they just kept giving.
So I will argue with on that, because defensive stats are tricky as far as tracking goes.
I'm saying Kobe got the reputation, and he was a really top-end defender early on in his career, especially the years
because that's how he had to prove himself.
Yeah, especially the years when he's starting to chuck the ball and become the Kobe we know and love. His defense suffered, and they just kept giving him the defensive team awards no matter what.
Are you back now?
Yeah, I'm back. So
okay.
They just kept giving Kobe those awards out of just, I don't know if it was habit or what it was, but he never got punished for when his defense fell off. As opposed to LeBron, I've seen people talk about LeBron's defense fall in the last few years, and that's because he's 34.
That throws me off about people knocking LeBron's defense. LeBron's defense.
It's going to be a fun editing process.
Basketball player of all time. with that said, decent coach. I'll scream at people if I need to. But like if you think for a second that in his prime of primes, lifting weights all he could, 6'6", 215, Michael Jordan had anything that he could accomplish against a damn near 6'9", 270-pound fucking, and he runs a 4 foot. What? That's LeBron James is arguably human in the first place. The only reason that we have to argue whether or not he's the greatest basketball player ever is because Mike did his fucking job, yo. Mike did his job. Mike made it so that you were going to have to, if we get to have this conversation, it's going to be a weird conversation. But at the same time, to pretend like LeBron James is anything other than a walking embodiment of Adonis is stupid. That's just silly. That's just silly.
I would say the thing that clears Kobe out 100% is not only that LeBron and MJ are clearly the more dominant scorers, and then we can have arguments back and forth all day about defense. Field goal percentage, you're talking 49% for Jordan over his career, 50 for LeBron. Kobe's is down to 44%. If you go through the stats,
I was going to give him 47. I would have just guessed.
40.
But you know, he was about pulling up. He was going to pull up.
And that's the thing is his stats say he is at bare minimum a top 12 player of all time. There are a lot of guys where it's different eras and you can argue where he falls in there, but it's a tier like Jordan and LeBron are on a tier by themselves. And we can say it's clear one way or the other. We're going to have that argument next week, but there's no way in hell anybody is close to them. They're by themselves.
And also take the chips argument for Shaq. Because, I lost him. Oh, he's back.
I'm here. I'm listening. Chips argument for Shaq. Now I lost you. I don't know how we're going to fix this.
Isn't Serena Williams that was more dominant at their game than Shaq? Shaq's run, Shaq had like, it was like 5, 6, 7 years where he was just like, oh no, that's the guy. You don't, who do you know that's 7'2", 325 and can get up court like that? Can read the defense, stick an arm out. Shaq was snatching steals with one hand and then throwing cross-court passes with it. That's what?
And I wish Shaq did his business the way you said Jordan did, because then Shaq would be in this debate. He, in the all-time talent level, he is right there.
Shaq is one of the greatest. Shaq is a national treasure. Shaquille O'Neal is one of the greatest things that the United States has ever produced by its ill-gotten fucking gains. You're welcome, LSU. G-E-A-U-X. Go Shaq. Motherfuck. I'm sorry. I hurt my own feelings because I forgot that motherfuckers really, like, as much as we love Shaq and endear Shaq, he kind of gets like played short when we talk about these great basketball players and great basketball feats and shit. Like, oh no, he couldn't shoot free throws. He was like 350 pounds. The fuck? What were you going to do to stop him from doing literally anything else? He made them change the rules of basketball. Hack-a-Shaq was a joke. Then it became a thing that the announcers were saying. Then it became a thing that the referees were aware of. And then it became an entire rule change to where if you foul someone so late in the game, now we get to pick who our free throw shooter is. Shaq literally changed the game of basketball, which on the cool, that kind of is part of why we have this 3-point shooting spree that we have. Keep all your shooters around because we can only pick someone from the court to shoot. So if everyone can shoot, doesn't matter who gets fouled late, it changes the way that you play late game ball. Because late game ball used to be, we're going to knock these motherfuckers around. They don't want anything to do with it. 2 points, 2 points, 2 points is 2 points. And after the Shaq thing, it became, no, we need to have people that, because if they get fouled, they need to be able to pull up and take the. Diesel is the man. Every time we talk about Kobe in the MJ LeBron thing, in my heart of hearts, I mean to say Shaq. But I feel like I have to bring up Kobe.
I think other people
Specifically
put Kobe
because
in there.
I think that other people didn't watch good basketball, or they just bought into
the rings. Rings or nothing.
No, it's not even necessarily the rings, it's the position itself. Because the same reason nobody brings Tim Duncan into the conversation. And if Tim Duncan ain't one of the great Dirk Nowitzki, like, nobody gives a shit about the big man. Like, think about your favorite NFL players. How many of them are fucking offensive linemen? Nobody gives a shit about the quote-unquote fat dude on the team.
I think the big man, it changed, particularly with Jordan, where he did put kind of the eyes on the person who has the ball more often, is dribbling, somebody that you can dominate the way the modern game is played. And so when somebody like Duncan, his abilities can be overlooked. I think that if you still meet that criteria, because I think there's a lot of people who will still talk about Kareem being possibly the greatest of all time. You will still have people talk about how great guys like Elijah
I look at Kareem the same way that I look at Babe Ruth, where, like, I can appreciate the things that you did, but the bulk of his body of work, he was competing against people that were not even remotely on the, like, we can argue about whether this class of athlete versus that Jordan era class of athlete, like, maybe we're just playing these kids short because Jordan was playing against lesser foes, which to an extent he had to have been. If you've ever watched any bit of sports, he has to have been, because if the sport's not growing, then what the fuck was he doing? With Kareem, the gap itself, Kareem was one of those generational players that basically marked the passing of the torch from, this is how y'all do this? Cool. Well, people that are doing this are now able to jump way higher and shoot from further with accuracy. Now we have to play a different game. So, like, the age-old question, what would have happened if Babe Ruth had to throw a pitch at, I don't know, any nigga you ever met? There's nothing clocking his shit. Like, I get it, and I'm not knocking his greatness. I'm saying, in this situation, if you take that Babe Ruth, he would be a scrub. Now, with that said, if you take the person that is Babe Ruth and mold him in this same situation, the athlete that comes out of that might be the scariest.
Wilt Chamberlain probably is closer to that, having that type of argument where it was just a completely different era. I think Kareem,
that was a man amongst boys.
But Kareem's end of his career is going into the beginning of kind of the 80s takeoff of the NBA. And it was still like, he's 40 and he's still working that. Like, he's not.
That's what makes Kareem the line itself, because he has to carry the torch. Like, I was the man over here. Hey, what's up, kids? And even though these kids are talented, he still has to keep rocking his shit anyway.
Yeah, but, like, imagine. Do you remember when Dikembe Mutombo was like 40? He was like at the very end. He wouldn't leave. He was on like 4 teams for no reason at the very end. This is like I think he was on the Denver
Post
Nuggets.
Hawks.
Yeah,
Post Hawks. Yeah, now
I think
this
he's on
is
the Denver Nuggets for like a year randomly in like
bad
'05 or
Mutombo.
something. Like, imagine that Mutombo was still giving Shaq work. Like, that's what Kareem did at the end of his career. Like, he was that old. It was like, he should be old. He shouldn't be taking on our top stars. He was. And I think there's a little bit to talk about who's the greatest, and we can try to say, okay, this is the modern era. Things are just completely different. But you compete against who's there. And I think in Kareem's case, he wasn't competing against scrubs, and he was still working guys into his 40s. The totality of his career says he's in the argument. I'd still say I always go back
I would
to
say the same
efficiency.
thing for Hakeem Olajuwon, because
And
with
I think he's up there.
Hakeem, as soon as the vacuum was created, because everyone, let's be real. Let's be real. If not for Jordan leaving, the Bulls win 7, maybe 8 straight chips.
I don't agree.
They already had 3.
Jordan was gassed, man.
I'm saying if he doesn't go away, if he gets the right person in his ear, because you still have off-season time, right? Suppose he doesn't do Space Jam. He just kicks it and actually recovers the way athletes are supposed to do.
You're not describing Michael Jordan. He doesn't take a break.
What I'm telling you is what the media would tell you. We know the real Michael Jordan. He'd be betting mad money on golf games every single week. He's still going to compete. He's still Michael Jordan.
Resting. He's never resting. That's
There's
the one
no
thing.
Such thing as resting. But the point is, the stuff that you're doing that's not resting, not every activity that you do weighs the same. And he was embodying himself in all heavyweight shit effectively. So if he quote unquote vacations and just, let's say, decides he wants to become a competitive golfer, his body is in way better shape. Then the Bulls only miss 1 championship instead of 2.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one, but I need you to do me a favor.
He definitely was going to miss that first one.
Imagine Jordan plays today, right? Does
Which
Michael
Jordan?
Michael Jordan is
first 3-peat or second 3-peat?
It doesn't matter. Imagine Michael Jordan is in this era rather than his era, right? Does Michael Jordan follow the league and start load management?
No.
Then I don't give you the 1 ring. He wins 6, and I think the other 2 years he's gassed as shit.
No.
He might not even win 6. He might lose some of those latter years because he runs himself into the ground after 93.
I'm going to say no, and then I'll also argue the load management thing didn't start until recently. That would have never been a concept.
Technically, LeBron has been doing a version of load management for like 8 years, and then when Kawhi does it, he's like, this is bad for the game, man.
And LeBron is lucky that Jordan wasn't in the thing that LeBron has had the luxury of is that he got in just at like the sweetest point in time. Jordan had left long enough that we aren't looking for specifically Jordan.
We put all the pressure on Kobe.
Exactly. It's all Kobe's problem. So LeBron can do all of the load management and all that stuff. And that's not his problem. He's just a young kid. It's a new league, blah, 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 blah. Again, I cannot express this enough. As much as I love shitting on Cleveland, just as a Bulls fan, because you've seen what Mike does to them in the playoffs. It's almost comical. That's rude. You should never treat one particular city like that. Like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah, you have to go there every year. Why do you keep doing something about shitting where you sleep or something like that? Anyway,
it's Cleveland. Cleveland treats Cleveland like that.
Rude. Rude. But even when it was all said and done, you never saw that hatred for Cleveland that you saw for Detroit. And then even when Indiana got it kicking off and that second run of championships, this I know this what white privilege feels like, because as a Bulls fan from the 90s, when I talk about that run, that second run, I don't mean a second championship, I mean the second three-peat. That's a privileged fucking statement. That second run when we was dicking on everybody again, like, fuck, am I a Steelers fan? You know what I'm saying? Like, that second run, Reggie just knew he had Mike's number because on paper he did. On paper, Indiana had all of the things that you needed. And
They didn't have Pippen.
they didn't have Pip.
Which, if you think about it, I mean, I think the last thing I take away before we get on out of here is that last ring, that number 6, is almost entirely Scotty's. Like, Jordan is on his last leg. He is gassed again, and he gets a 6th MVP.
I'm gonna jump.
I mean, I'm
fifth
not
one
saying
was Scotty's. The fifth one was still Jordan's. No, I did that backwards. Fifth one was Scotty's. The second one was Jordan's.
I think Jordan, I mean, all right, so in fairness, he played amazing in the playoffs, but the regular season Jordan was lesser than the Jordan we had seen before. And I still think at the end of the day, Jordan still earned that MVP because the way he demolished the Jazz down the stretch in Game 6. But I still think if you don't have Scotty, there is no 6 championships for Jordan. I think you end at 3. I think the second three-peat, I don't know how you replace Scotty. It's like any sort of replacement doesn't work, you know? Like, Scottie Pippen kept them at that level so that when Jordan couldn't be the Jordan we knew, they still were one of the best teams in the league. When Jordan was on his shit, you
put
couldn't
them
touch
at that level in the first place. Yeah. And again, if you could make like a all NBA, All-Star, Scottie Pippen's name fell out of your mouth afterwards, and somehow he was getting paid like practice squad money effectively. Like, I understand how wages work. You know, I'm a bartender. I work for whatever scraps people decide to throw. But for Scottie Pippen to literally be the second best basketball player in the world for that long means that he's got to be one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Just, are you tracking that? Did that sentence make sense?
Yeah.
Like, if you're one of the best in the world for an extended period of time, consistently, perennially, why is anyone else getting paid before? How no one burned the United Center down is fucking astonishing to me. And also, shout out Chris Paul. He may be a big old douchebag, but he's doing what he should for the fucking CBA, man. Like, I just need somebody to show that same love to the college students, because it's the same thing again. The only reason Scotty got played like that is because he needs to take care of his people, and he's coming out of a garbage situation. Sure, whatever you hand him is plenty, until he walks into the practice facility and realizes that this asshole who's not even good at this is making 5 times as much money.
I will say that Pippen got his money from the Rockets and subsequently the Trailblazers. So he eventually got paid.
No, Pippen did not get his money. Pippen
Nick,
didn't get his money. Be real. Pippen didn't get his money. He did not get his money.
he made $100 million from not doing a damn thing down the stretch, which makes up for how much
did Jordan make, and how much did Pippen have to do with all of it up to there? Pippen didn't get his money.
Well, let me check for Jordan because Jordan didn't get paid shit either on the first three-peat. I mean, on the second one, they started giving him $30 million.
Oh, that's fair. Jordan got his money off of his shoes.
Yeah, and so
His shoes made his money. The
so
Bulls wasn't paying nobody, and they still didn't pay nobody, and that's why the Bulls suck now anyway, because they still – the only person that I've seen the Bulls pay in the last, 15 years was Carlos Boozer.
they picked the right one, didn't they?
Right. So good at that. The Bulls are about as good as the Bears at paying people. Like, the Bears refused to pay Brian Urlacher. He just wanted a 2-year contract that was about half as much as the league average for a veteran linebacker of his caliber would be making. And instead, they told him to fuck himself.
All right, so I'm looking here. I think Jordan finished with $93 million. He didn't get paid more than $4 million.
He finished with $93 million?
That was total. That's his career.
From the NBA itself.
Yeah. So
what did he play? Said 9 and then 3 and then a couple. So 15 years or something like that?
Yeah. So he got $30 million in 97, 33 in 98, every other year under 4. And then I'm trying to pull up Scotty, although my computer's running.
So those are those are both 1-year deals?
Yeah, so they gave him to get him to come back, they gave him a lot of money in those final 2 years. Pippen, which this is crazy, he finished with $109 million. And that's because he didn't get paid nothing until he goes to that Rockets deal. And then he gets $11 million the first year, then 14, 13, 18, 19. And then he gets a couple 4 and 5s from the Bulls again. The Bulls wouldn't even pay him for those final 2 years when he went back.
Damn.
But, I mean,
that was like a charity on his.
He was not worth $10 million any of the years he was getting paid. He was definitely not worth 20 that final year with the Blazers. So he got his on the back end. It just wasn't from the Bulls.
Not let himself get taken advantage of. I don't know. That's easy to say, but at the same time, Jerry Krause, for all of the crass that he was, motherfucker was good at his job. I'm mostly upset at the Bulls organization for keeping him in front of cameras. At a point, as an organization, you have to. Clearly, Jerry Krause is great at what he's doing. He's got you, Michael Jordan. He got you, Scottie Pippen. Motherfuckers making money, ringing in chips. If you can just keep Jerry out the fucking way, keep him out of his own way, especially on that later run, like the second three-peat, the fact that they started the last season on the premise of this is going to be Phil Jackson's last season. If your GM is saying that out loud to the press while you are 2-time champions and the only gap between your last 3 championships was when your champion himself was mourning his father and swinging baseball bats, maybe tell that dude to shut the fuck up. Hey, Jerry, nigga, chill. That shouldn't be in a vacuum. You want to believe that given everything that's leading up to here, surely Jerry knows something that I don't know. I should just chill out. Jerry's got the answer. But he didn't. Oh, hold on. I just hurt my own feelings. He did. He did. And then it got injured. He played the game just right. And then he brought basically the rebirth with Derrick Rose, that Joakim Noah, Luol Deng. The sickest, this team shouldn't be nearly this good, except that dude is really good. And no one is going to stop their big man from just elbowing people in the dick. I'm pretty sure Joakim Noah was just elbowing people. I don't know if he was actually playing defense or nothing, but pretty sure he was just elbowing people in the dick. But Derrick Rose put on a clinic on how you play point guard while also not being able to shoot a 3-ball to save your fucking life. That was impressive. When's the last time you saw a point guard dominate like that and can't shoot a 3 to save his life?
That's tough.
The closest thing I can come up with off the top of my head would be the Ben Simmons campaign, but he was a point forward. But
Westbrook, he's pulled the 3 in this year with the Rockets, but before that he couldn't.
He's not a 3 shooter. That's true.
So I think Westbrook, John Wall. I'd have to look at his percentages. Maybe I'm underselling him on his 3-point shooting.
The eye test will tell you the answer on John Wall. He probably wasn't.
I think we hit most of our points. I think we're gonna, most of our points being everything other than the actual 2 episodes from this week. But we hit on enough Bulls topics. I think we're going to pop on out of here, and we'll be back next week.
So much faith in your ability to do the things that you're supposed to do.
I am going to edit the hell out of these things and hope that we actually have enough footage from all of the disconnections.
Polish my bullshit. I'm
going to send you an Ethernet cord and hope that helps. I'm also maybe going to use...
Yeah, no, that's already connected.
Then I'm going to have to try to use Kinsey's laptop and hope that my gigabits of RAM can improve it. I don't know what the way is to improve this. I shut off everything else, and this computer has done fine most of the other time. So I don't know the best game plan. But I'm
curious to see which parts of the delay you'll see when you go to watch it, because there's some parts where I'm pretty sure I froze and you were still moving, and other parts where you froze and I was still moving. So
it should be interesting. I'm going to figure it out the best I can, and
I believe in you.
I was going to pull the cord on this a long while ago, but I needed the extra time because for all I know, we talked for 2 hours, but we'd have 30 minutes of actual conversation.
And better safe than sorry, right?
Yeah, got to go extra, even if it makes me have to do a little bit more work. But
my favorite part is that you're going to have to listen to me say all of the sounds that I made earlier again.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat the system. I'm going to go by the eyeball test on the footage and see what works. That's all we're going to have for this episode of the Q Crew.
Q Crew.
We should be back next week to talk about the final 2 episodes of The Last Dance. Finally, the debate everybody's been waiting for us to talk about, because everybody else does it all the time. We save our great points. We're going to talk about LeBron versus Jordan, the greatest of all time.
The greatest versus the GOAT.
We're going to figure it out next week, so tune back in. That's all we have. Later, folks.